Now, Tosan Jemide is one of Africa's biggest names in cake making. And of course, one of his notable works is the tallest cake in Africa. And recently, he decided to put his journey as a baker into black and white, if you know what that means. The result is the book Sugar Icing, which I have in my hand, a story of grit and glory, which we'll be talking about this morning. Now, of course, earlier on, Tosan was joining us, and he was doing some decorations on the cake that we had in the open space, and that's really nice.
Thanks.
That finished product looks really, really excellent.
Did it in a rush.
Yeah, in a hurry. Yeah. So thank you for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you.
This book is amazing.
Thanks.
It's when you say you can never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
So you see a man in front of a book and has a little cake in his hand, and you're wondering what does he have to say. But when you read the story, it's really a story of grit and glory. So just tell us about this book in 1 minute.
Well, essentially, it's about me, and I felt I had a story to tell. There are a lot of ups and downs, in my journey, and people didn't really know about it. A lot of times people look at me, I'm like, wow, I want to be like you.
Yeah.
Mama, don't wish that for yourself.
Yeah.
And I just turned 50, and I'm at the point where I feel, I need to start sharing a lot of my story, giving back, creating more impact than I have done in my other years. And I thought, come up with something simple, easy to read, something that would impact anybody's life, not just the cake decorators or the bakers, And, my story is one of resilience, perseverance, a lot of grit, because, there's a lot of stuff that happened in my life over time.
Exactly. When you read the book, you actually told the story from the early days and what happened and the challenges and all of that. But one of the first things that you noticed from reading this book is you talked about your mom, and you actually dedicated the book to her. Yeah. So tell us about how your mom influenced not just you personally, but, the career that you eventually chose.
Now, this gets emotional.
Yeah, I know.
My mom was like my everything. I was the closest. We come from a family of 6 kids my mom had, and I was just the clingiest to her. I was always her tail, her man Friday, and by virtue of the fact that I was always with her, and I just had, my heart was, for her all the time. It was almost impossible for me to escape the chores. So she would beckon on everyone, oh, please help me with this, help me with that. Everybody would run, basically.
But you were always available.
I just had to stay because everybody goes away. Who's going to help mommy? So I ended up staying all the time. And in those times that I stayed, I just did all the dirty work for her, basically. Sieve the flour. In those days, there were no mixers. So it was wooden spoon, big bowl, sugar,
and then you just
margarine,
keep turning and growing muscles.
So it was a lot of just that dirty work. And I never really baked a cake while she was alive.
Wow.
But she passed on those values of hard work, dedication, be committed to whatever you do. Laziness was a no, and after she passed on, I didn't even think I was going to bake, but my brother was getting married about 3 years later, and he says, who's going to make my wedding cake, and my mom used to do a lot of free cakes, so I said, no way, I'm not paying for a cake. So he said, Tosan, if anybody is going to attempt a cake, it will be you, so you're going to make my wedding. I'm like, how?
Wow. So you took the skills that you learned from your mom.
So it was those skills that I learned, doing the dirty jobs, doing the chores, just helping her out. It was those skills that I had to bring out forcefully, and begin to think of how to come up with something that looked like a wedding cake.
And it wasn't bad, because I'm seeing the cake here in one of the pictures in the book. It says, "My first wedding cake made for my brother Timmy." Amazing. So one of the things that you also discover in this book is that it wasn't like you just went into the business of cake making. There was a process to it.
Yes.
And you actually even started with fashion, when you read in chapter 2, and you decided that you were going to start, a fashion business before you eventually settled into and focused. But to tell us about that background and how you started back in '91, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the thing is, I come from a home where, there's a lot of discipline. My dad was a very, very strong disciplinarian, and he was also very frugal. So we were well off, middle class family. My dad could afford to do anything for us, essentially, to an extent, but he only gave us what we needed. So while I was in school, I got into university, and I found myself in a place where there was a bit of lack. I couldn't go back to Daddy to say, I needed some baths. And Dad was like, "What's wrong with what you're wearing? You want to?" So I now had to start thinking to myself, man, you have to kit yourself up somehow. So I actually started kitting myself up. I'd go to the market, get some fabric, make some nice pants, make some nice linen shirts or T-shirts, and they were always a hit. So I'm wearing them, and everyone's saying, "Oh, where you get? I like your shirt. Where did you get it from?" And
So that sparked an interest in fashion,
yes.
which wasn't known about you before.
Not at all, And I started to do it for friends, family, And by the time I had finished university, I essentially was an established entrepreneur in fashion in so many ways. So it was a no-brainer. I didn't need to think about what I wanted to do, and it was just straight into fashion. So what I did was I looked for a fashion house.
OJ's, I think.
OJ's, yes.
I saw that in the book.
I did. That's why I did my youth corps. National Youth, and it was part
who does the NYSC in the fashion house? Like, it's just Tosan, right?
Well, I guess I was focused.
Yeah.
And I knew that I needed to get the juice out of the fashion business, running a business, because I knew that's where I was going.
So eventually, I mean, when you read through the book, then you then focused on cake making, and your name began to grow. A lot of times when people, I mean, you're a big star now in the cake industry. Everybody knows the name, and you're talking about the fact that you came through a struggle, and that's part of the story when you read the book. Of course, we don't want to say the whole story because we want people to actually buy it.
Yes, correct.
But the journey itself, and for instance, one of the high points in the book is when you were trying to build that tallest cake in Africa, and you had told everybody, you had invited international press. So you had CNN, BBC, everybody had come to see you build this tallest cake in Africa, and then everything seemed like it was going wrong at some point. Can you just tell us about that? Because that was a critical moment in the book when you're reading it, and really, really suspenseful.
When I think about that night, whenever I think about that night, I have palpitations. It was a very eventful night, and we started off really great. Everything was going well, but trouble started in the Paradise when we were trying to put the second tier.
So you had finished building the first tier of the cake.
Building.
How tall was that?
The first tier, the whole cake was about 28 feet. So
28 feet.
Yeah,
wow.
we probably were about 1 meter.
Okay, which is about maybe 5 feet.
But the cakes were massive. The base was, I think the base was about 8 meters.
Whoa.
The base,
that's massive.
yeah,
That's
it was
really
massive.
Big, yeah.
So the second tier followed maybe with a reduction of maybe about 1 meter 7. And trying to balance it was just impossible. It kept falling over. It kept falling over, and
so like so you were trying to put other tiers on it, and you couldn't. It wasn't balancing.
It just wasn't balancing. It was a disaster. And, you know, we tried and tried and tried and tried. And at some point, I just said, you know what? I mean, my whole team, the whole team, everybody was there working, trying to suggestions, everybody coming up with something, and it just didn't work, you know. So I had a little conversation with the head of the project team, and I just told him, you know what, I think
this thing is not going to work.
You know, let's just honorably, you know,
just tell people that it didn't work.
We tried.
All the CNN guys.
Yes.
Anyway, if you want to hear the end of that story and whether or not he eventually built the tallest cake in Africa, then you need to get this book. It's called Sugar Icing, a story of grit and glory by Tosan Jemide. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Welcome, Yemi.
Amazing work that you're doing. And
Thanks.
of course, maybe later on we'll talk about some of the other works that you're focusing on for the future.
Oh, yes.
All right.